morning, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar. As I mentioned, today is an introductory webinar to you at college for the pilot program that we are going to be doing this upcoming school year. It is a 2-year pilot implementing the U at College platform on about 14 of our campuses here in the CSU. So many of you have heard of U at College, maybe through different conversations on your campus, or maybe directly you have been in some of the conversations and meetings about U at College. And so we just wanted the opportunity to have U at College come and present to all of the campuses that have given the thumbs up that they want to go ahead and be a part of the pilot group. So today's presenters are from U at College, and I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the remote over to those folks, and let them go ahead and lead the way.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Denise. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, great. Just always have to make sure technology is working. So thank you for the great introduction, and thank you all for joining. We're extremely excited about this pilot and just feel like our missions are so much in alignment. It was a very logical fit. So at a very high level, let's start with introduction. So my name is Nathan Demers. My background, I'm a clinical psychologist, and my title and role here, I'm the Vice President and Director of Clinical Programs. So that means I oversee all of our clinical content in the site, our strategic partnerships, and help oversee all of our launches as well. And I'll turn it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Nolan Tassone. I'm the Director of Campus Partnerships over here. You might have seen me at a conference or via email, so I'm really excited to be chatting with you all today, and I'll be leading a walkthrough through the portal for you all to really show you those main functions, and really excited to begin this collaboration with you.
And I'm Paige Buford, the Director of Campus Programming here at U at College. I work with all of our campus partners to launch the U portal, and we'll be overviewing our onboarding process today.
So great. And Denise, if you're able to stop sharing your screen so we can have the ability to share ours, that would be great. So we're just working on that. Thank you all for bearing with us for just a second with technology. Denise, would you mind just confirming that you're able to see our screen, seeing the orange personalizing well-being?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect, glad to hear it. So we can skip ahead a slide, or actually 2 slides, because Denise was so kind to make a slide that looked just like ours. So with that, what we'd like to do is just start with a high overview of the agenda. So as we mentioned, what we're going to do, just to level set and make sure everyone is on the same page, we're going to do a very quick overview of U at College for some of you who may not be as familiar with the platform. From there, we'll do a very quick high-level virtual walkthrough that Nolan will be providing. From there, we'll kick it over to Paige, who's going to do a 50,000-foot overview of what the onboarding process looks like, so that you all can know what to expect and what parties to engage throughout the process. From there, we'll just quickly talk about next steps and jump into some Q&A. Throughout the presentation, feel free to chat any questions that you have throughout. We will be leaving plenty of time at the end for Q&A, but I know some of those questions are just burning in the moment. Feel free, and we'll do our best to either address them in the moment or pause until the end. So we will be monitoring those. So with that, at a very high level, I'd love to give you just the background of U at College and how we came to be. So our team's mission is really to help the mental health and well-being of college students. And with that, we did a lot of research, both on the academic side, but equally important, if not more important, did a human-centered design process, really getting to know what is the experience of college students today and how can we best support that. And one of the first things that we heard from students is that a lot of times they don't conceptualize a lot of the challenges that they're experiencing as a mental health challenge. So the idea of making a mental health fitness center or something that was a little bit more pointed was not the right route to go. So we made a platform that's much bigger than that, and it's comprehensive of the student experience, because as all you know, I'm sure, a lot of times students are stressed out of their mind, they're having difficulty meeting their basic needs, maybe they just experienced a loss, or are way behind in the classroom. They're so anxious they can't sleep or make it to class, but they don't have a behavioral health disorder. That's someone else. So with that, this well-being approach was extremely important, which we'll demonstrate as we jump into the demo. And then students also said, you know, there's enough crisis lines out there and things when I'm already behind the 8 ball, but I would really like a platform that could help me build my tools at the onset of my college experience and throughout to help me sharpen those tools in my toolbox. And I'm also sure everyone is very familiar that if we're asking students today to use anything technology-oriented, we absolutely have to have a great user experience and user interface, matching that of a Facebook, a Snapchat, an Instagram, or other platforms that are quote-unquote cool and hip. So the last two are also very important. So one other thing that students said loud and clear are that if this platform isn't confidential and anonymous, and I'm worried that Denise or someone else in my office is going to come knocking on my door, I'm definitely not going to use your platform, and I'm definitely not going to endorse something like prescription drug abuse or domestic abuse or even maybe food insecurity if that's a challenge. So with that, we knew we had to respect that confidentiality and anonymity. But then on the other side, what students said is the experience at Long Beach is different than Wisconsin-Madison, is different than Western Wyoming Community College, is different than Loyola Marymount. So they didn't want to just go to a generic college platform. They wanted something that's very much tailored for their experience and furthermore, their unique identities on campus. Because of course, the experience of a student veteran is very different than an international student, which is different than a student athlete. And of course, all those identities can also interact and overlap with one another. So we made the platform personalized to each individual user. So again, at a high level, showing another broad brushstroke, what we came up with is a well-being model with 3 main domains. So Thrive is really the backbone of the site, which is all about well-being, physical, and mental health. So this is getting into those behavioral health topics such as anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, body image, etc. But then we also have a domain called Succeed, which is all about academic, career success, finances, and things like that. So this gets into a lot of those other basic needs. And very interestingly, 2 things we know are that, one, a lot of students who end up presenting for counseling services are actually there for something related to the Succeed domain, whether that's coping with financial difficulties or the stress of not knowing what to major in and feeling like everyone else knows what they're going to do, or figuring out how they're going to pay off all this debt that they've accrued. So that was a very important domain, and not surprisingly, this is where most students enter the site because it's quote-unquote acceptable to be stressed about academics and finances. And then the last domain is what we call Matter, and that's all about purpose and connections on campus, including relationships, involvement. And we know students at the end of the day only spend about 10% of their time in the classroom. And a lot of these external factors are actually integral to that student's well-being, as well as their ability or factors that impact their persistence and success in the classroom. So that's our 3-tiered approach to well-being. And I'm going to kick it over to Nolan to talk about how all these insights and what we made actually came to life by doing a quick demonstration of the platform.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. So before I hop in here, I'm going to be showing you Colorado State University's instance of their portal. We do have a public-private partnership with them, so I'm going to be taking you through what it looks like via a student user. Before I do so, I wanted to highlight some other instances of the portal so you can really see that we customize this specific to your institution. So not only is it matching those brand standards and what it's like to be on campus, but keep in mind that we're roping in all of those campus resources as well that you all currently offer on campus. And this is really where students can go to architect their ultimate college experience. So it's that one-stop shop for all things well-being, but also student success, basic needs initiatives, and etc. So as I hop into Ava Cole's instance of the portal, so she is a fictitious user, but the important part of her usage and how she has used the portal thus far is very important because, as Nathan mentioned, everything is personalized for Ava. So she's filled out her profile, she's taken her reality check assessments, and she's notified the portal that she is an international student, for instance. She is a first-year student, and she also might be struggling with her sleep or stress and anxiety. So again, as I go through the portal, keep in mind that all of the resources and content that we're curating are really vetted and aggregated for Ava as a student user. So what I'm showing you now is a bank of our content, and I'll make sure to really do a deep dive later as to what this content is, but keep in mind that these are curated, again, for the specific users on campus. The other main way we see students navigating the portal outside of our search function, so if they need to look up anything regarding, food insecurity, for instance, or anything specific to their identities or experiences, they can absolutely do that here. But the other main way, again, we see students navigating are through our 3 domains. So as Nathan mentioned, Succeed, all about academic and career success. Thrive is all about holistic, physical, and mental well-being. And then Matter is all about purpose and connection, developing social resilience, things of that nature. So once Ava comes into the portal, maybe learning about this at new student orientation or first-year experience programming, she can fill out her profile, and this is where she can note some of those unique identities that she may have on campus. What is your grade level? We know students' needs change over time, as you all are very familiar with as well, so highlighting resources appropriately, and then drilling down into some of those unique identities on campus as well. So if Ava is an international student, she can get connected with the Multicultural Center on campus, for instance, or the International Students and Housing Center, if that's a resource that you currently offer students as well. Or maybe she is an LGBTQIA student, getting connected to those Pride resource centers on campus, and then all of those resources that we supplement as well. And then really where that personalization goes a step further is with the reality check assessments. So being Thrive-centric, I'll take you through what these are, and reality check assessments are proprietary assessments that we've created. So they're written much less like a Beck's Depression Inventory or a PHQ-9, for instance, if you're familiar with that terminology, and more written like a BuzzFeed quiz or those normal assessments that students are open and honest with in their everyday lives. And the important part of this is students like Ava told us, I really want to take well-being into my own hands, but I would rather have an assessment that I can really drive feedback and actually learn those growth edges and plant those seeds around awareness. So maybe body image is something that she's a rock star at. By no means should she stop thriving in that aspect, so she can find all of those related resources with the click of a button. But maybe she wants to take attention to sleep or stress and anxiety, for instance. Again, with one click of a button, she can get to all of those related resources. And hopping into another subdomain, I'm going to actually touch on what that content and what those resources are that we're including in the portal. So as an organization, we have over 1,000 pieces of content that we're always keeping evergreen, evidence-based, making sure we're having a lot of multimedia content and engaging students in a plethora of different ways. So as I hover over all resources, you can see that these are resources that we're supplementing for you all on campus as administrators. But at the same time, we're also highlighting those campus-specific resources that, again, exist on campus for you all.
Heidi, that's a great question. The question coming in, sorry to cut you off, Nolan, I know you can't see the chat. Are the assessment tools validated? So these tools, we haven't done a standalone validation measure, and one thing to conceptualize, Heidi, I'm not sure your background if you're a clinician, and one thing I forgot to do is ask everyone to just type in what school and roles you are fulfilling in coming to this call. If you're open to doing that, that would be great. But these are very high-level screening tools. So these tools are not intended to diagnose by any means. And why that is we essentially took the most effective questions from a number of different measures. For example, the PHQ-2, the GAD, Beck's Depression Inventory, and pulled those in, wrote them in a student's voice so that they can connect to those resources that are of most interest. And the site will recommend, if a student does screen positively on our assessment for, let's say, anxiety, that will direct them to a more in-depth assessment to actually further their understanding and knowledge if they may or may not have an anxiety disorder. So I hope that answers that question for you. If not, feel free to chat and we can come back and answer that during the Q&A.
Yeah, great question. So just to go back to those campus-specific resources, really the importance of these is to engage students in a meaningful way and get them to the right door at the right time on campus. And what we've seen with a lot of the screening tools and clubs and organizations that we're including, again, resources that you all head up as administrators, we usually see a 5-fold increase in the number of students actually accessing these. So that's really the powerful part, again, in getting students to the right door at the right time. There's a number of other bells and whistles for student users. So Ava can go in, set some goals, set some sub-goals, and create SMART goals, maybe journal and get notifications related to her goals. We're actually releasing that functionality come August. We're very excited for that. Students can also favorite content, access content accordingly, and share content with friends, for instance. And then the last part that I want to make sure to be keen on showing you all is the administrator dashboard. So everything I showed you thus far is something that Ava Cole can use as a student, but we wanted to create a special access for you all to really learn about some of those well-being trends as students are using the portal more. So first off, we want to make sure that students are actually using the portal. Again, we have really strong utilization, but we want to make sure in our pilot program with these 14 schools that students are coming in on a regular basis, knowing that students are logging in, registering. And of note, I've selected this time frame for the summer semester, and what's really interesting is as we roll this out with our playbook to include a new student orientation, we can see that there's 11,000 logins, 3,000 new student registrations, and you can start to see what some of those new students are accessing when it comes to content. Where you can become really granular is start to look at that assessment data and say, you know what, maybe my students are not having a problem managing alcohol and substance use, but sleep and stress and anxiety might be falling by the wayside. This is where we can really support students proactively and find out some of those well-being trends. And this is a really great tool to use cross-departmentally. So if you're a counseling center director, if you're a dean of students, if you're a AVP of academic success, for instance, you can really use this as a tool to leverage some of those on-campus programming efforts and furthermore highlight content within the portal. You can also overlay 3 demographics at once. So if you want to really look into that first year experience or what sophomore slump looks like in terms of well-being trends, you can absolutely do that here, export it into a CSV and take it to SPSS if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of the data. So that's all I had to share in terms of the walkthrough. I'm actually going to pop back to my slide presentation, and we're going to share, Nathan is going to share some of our utilization, some of the impacts that we've had on campus, and then we'll actually get into what it takes to create this.
Thanks, Nolan. And
quick question. This is Denise from the Chancellor's office. If you on the platform, you at college, can you talk a little bit about how the tool can be used as for engagement of faculty and staff, and how if campuses are looking to really market this out, get it to folks on campus and use it as a real resource, how they can go about doing that with engagement from faculty and staff?
Yeah, thank you, Denise. And sorry we didn't cover that more explicitly. So the first thing I'll mention is that all faculty and staff on campus have access to the platform. And the importance of that, of course, is that the first person to see a student struggling, whether it's with a mental health challenge or with something related to basic needs, tends not to be a counselor or a case manager. It tends to be a professor, a trusted mentor, maybe a coach or an RA. So with that, all those individuals can log into the platform, do a quick search for whatever it is. Maybe a student's feeling overwhelmed and they want to do a quick search for stress. So an RA or a mentor could do a search for stress and then be made aware of all those resources that that student can access, both online, evidence-based and evidence-informed resources, as well as all those resources that we've vetted from across the internet. So that's a great way for faculty and staff to use it, and we see very high levels of that. The other way that we see it being very utilized in counseling centers and case management is a lot of times students come in with a presenting concern but have a number of other challenges below the surface, or would simply benefit from learning some mindfulness techniques or stress management tips or time management. So the way these individuals use it is recommend that students go and explore some of these resources in between sessions. And the beauty of that is that also increases the student's self-efficacy, because that locus of control is from within, where they're saying, I found this resource, and then before they know it, they found it helpful and they might share it with another friend. And Nolan, if you could quickly hover over this button right here, faculty and staff with one click can open up an email with that link that will immediately be able to send that link to a student. So that's very important. And then when it comes to the actual marketing, I'm not going to jump ahead of ourselves, but our marketing toolkit also includes templated emails that can be distributed to faculty and staff to inform them about the platform and gives them some very simple language to help refer students to it. We also have business cards and stickers that faculty and staff can keep on their desks to be able to distribute accordingly. But Paige will get into that in just a little bit. So did that answer that question, Denise?
Yeah, yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder there. So jumping back into some of our utilization to date, as Nolan mentioned, we have a public-private partnership with Colorado State University. Multiple CSUs is confusing, but we're doing our best. And what we've found is our marketing toolkit is very robust, and when campuses utilize it, we have incredible engagement across the board. So for your reference, CSU, Colorado State University, is an instance of about 33,000 students. And since our rollout in 2016, we've had over 50,000 unique users. That includes faculty, staff, as well as incoming students and students that have matriculated through the system. So we know that we have an incredible saturation. We also know that we've had over 20,000 of those reality checks taken. And when we talk about the FTE that would take to get 20,000 students to take assessments, as well as give them meaningful feedback, I'd argue that that's nearly impossible with our constraints on time and resources. And the other really important insight there is a lot of these assessments, when we look at time of day that these are completed, are well outside of our working hours, and that we probably don't want to be giving students these assessments at 3 in the morning on a Friday night, which is when a lot of students are completing these. We have a very strong time on site. For millennials and most people nowadays, the average time on site is actually 8 seconds on the low end and 30 seconds on the very high end. So with that, we know that students are coming and engaging meaningfully with the site and connecting to resources. And then most importantly, we know that we've connected students to over 60,000 different resources from tracking those CTA buttons, which means a student came to our site and then linked out to campus resources or other evidence-based and informed resources, which at the end of the day is really what we're trying to do. So in addition to that, our engagement is very important, of course, but we also want to know that we're actually changing behavior at the end of the day. So we've done a number of surveys and survey research at Colorado State in partnership with their research department. And on a side note, we're setting up a longitudinal study with their social sciences research department to really get a close look at our outcomes. But what we've done to date is our survey data, and we found that 87% of users reported learning about a new campus resource, and half that population reported actually connecting to that resource, so just over 40%. And we know students that are engaged on campus tend to be happier, healthier, and are much more likely to graduate. 76% said as a result of using the platform, they're much better able to manage their stress. That one, in my opinion, speaks for itself. But the one that I'd say our team is most proud of is that we know 98% of our first-year users reported learning about a new skill or resource related to our 3 domains. And why that's so important to us is we know students, whether they're a traditional student or a non-traditional student, that's a very malleable time. And with that, a lot of times students are making their own decisions and gaining independence around substance use, their physical health, nutrition, spending habits, and knowing that we're connecting students to those evidence-based and informed resources at this very malleable time, we know can not only plant those positive health-related behaviors for their college experience, but ideally throughout the lifespan. And then this last slide regarding our outcomes really shows the holistic nature of the platform, and in our opinion, why this is such a perfect fit with what you all are trying to accomplish. So this is highlighting what students report getting from the portal when they go there. So we know that almost half reported coming here and feeling more connected to campus. About just under 40% report learning something new about their physical or mental health. But then we also know students are coming to learn more about study habits or learning about perspectives and identities that are different from their own, which in today's socio-political culture we're very happy about. Students are also coming to learn more about friendships as well as substance use. So with that, this holistic approach is A, what leads to our high levels of engagement, but B is also making sure that this platform is relevant to each and every student on campus. Whether I'm thriving and doing great across the board and simply want to learn about new resources, or I'm on the other end of the spectrum having challenges with behavioral health or my basic needs, this platform has relevance for the entire student body as well as faculty and staff. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paige Buford to talk about our launch process at a very high overview. And one thing that I'd ask, I'm sorry I didn't ask this at the onset of the presentation during introductions, if everyone's willing to just chat what school you're coming from and your role, that'd be very helpful for us and for Paige specifically, just to know what areas of the onboarding process to highlight. So that'd be great. We'll keep moving on while you chat those in. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Paige.
Thanks, Nathan. As Nathan mentioned, we'll be undertaking a 12 to 16-week onboarding and launch period to get this full network up and running with the U platform. So I'm going to give you a very high-level overview about what that means. No need to take notes or anything during this, as we will have a much more in-depth conversation in the future to really share the details there. But I wanted to give you a big picture view. Our launch contains 5 key phases, the first one being a kickoff. So we know that our most successful launches have really strong coalitions and early cross-departmental buy-in. So we want to engage all those stakeholders early in our initial onboarding calls. We'll be having 2 onboarding meetings that you can choose based on your availability, much like this week's meeting set. And we'll also have a separate onboarding meeting with your IT folks at every institution, so that we can make sure they have everything that they need to get going. Thank you all for chatting in your names and positions. It's very helpful. Keep those coming. After we do the initial kickoff, we collect your visual branding elements, inclusive of logos, imagery, colors, so we can generate your unique instances of the U portal and make them really look and feel like home for your students. We will also use this time to identify your campus resources that we want to add visibility to on the U portal. Our team will take those back and draft really student-friendly language that will engage those users on the platform and upload them to the site. We will also onboard you to our marketing toolkit and best practices, which you'll get a sneak peek of here in a minute. To make sure we have successful rollouts planned at every single university and college. We'll form really strong working groups to develop those rollout plans and support your network. And then, of course, we push the site live with the help of your IT folks and build in a single sign-on so that your students are able to use their same credentials to get into the U portal as they do everywhere else. And as I mentioned, we wanted to give you a sneak peek of our marketing playbook. We have honed this over many, many campus launches and have a lot of best practices to share with you, as well as many campaigns so that you can be really choosy about what you think will meet your student body best and really engage them.
The one thing I'll just add about this in relationship to everyone on the call, I will say we have a great group ranging from a number of different roles. And one thing that's been so successful about the platform is the universal nature of it, in that someone working in academic advising has just as much direct benefit from helping train their staff and present this to students, as does the Health and Counseling Center, as does Res Life. So thank you all for being here and being such a great group and being advocates moving forward, getting this to your peers and colleagues.
And as I mentioned, to kick us off really strong with the full network, we will be asking you all to complete contact sheets, identifying your colleagues who will be key parts of rolling this out so that we can really work in the most efficient ways. And we'll be asking you to complete that by July 31st to get us started.
I'll also be following up with Denise to provide our data and security policy so you all can pass this to a designated IT point of contact. And the important part of that is, as we will be having a separate kickoff meeting for IT, this will merely prep them for everything that they can expect in the launch process and get them really engaged with all of our technology and what it offers. So keep an eye out after the call today for an email from Denise, including that contact sheet and then the data and security policy as well.
So with that, we'd really love to open it up to questions. Obviously, we covered a lot, from revisiting the platform all the way through a high level of what the onboarding and implementation will look like, and we welcome any questions that you have. I think the easiest way we've found is to use the chat function and do so, and then if there's a really complex question, we can open up microphones for other individuals to help provide additional context. And Denise, if you have any, feel free.
I'll kick it off. I have a question. How have you all been able to engage students coming back and using the platform multiple times? And maybe you have some data or something that you can speak to, but just being able to show that students are not just coming for one time or twice throughout the semester, but how have campuses been successful in, the students coming back multiple times to use the platform?
Yeah, great question. So our marketing playbook is really designed to generate huge levels of initial awareness and get everyone into their initial account registration through things like orientation, strategic web links, fabulous poster campaigns, and staff trainings of important stakeholders, as well as your student leadership groups. So those things really go a long way in establishing the uPortal as part of campus culture, but it also teaches students where they can return to and what this platform is for. So one of the best ways we have found to drive that repeat traffic semester over semester is having a big highlighted link on your main student platform, where they are already going to do things like register for classes, check their grades, check their assignments. They also learn to go there for their well-being, and it really heightens that importance of their well-being to the level of their academics or finances. And we see them return back simply with that link placement over and over at many of our institutions, of course, supported by your continual promotional efforts. We also have the ability within the platform to do things like email content, ECRMs to all existing student users. We release new features for them in that capacity as well. And we continue to support your staff understanding. And we have seen numbers up to 75% repeat users semester over semester, and we want to engage them 3 to 4 times a semester ideally. So those are kind of our benchmark numbers to shoot for and exceed if we want to.
Did that fully answer that question, Denise?
Yes, thank you.
Great, and I'm just going to go from the top of the list and answer some of these questions. And I know, Denise, you're doing some as we go, but I'm just going to tackle them one at a time. So Heidi, thank you for the question. Can staff and faculty use the assessment tools for their own wellness? The answer is absolutely. So we made the platform to really be tuned into the student experience in that developmental phase of life. However, that being said, they obviously can apply to faculty, staff, and other individuals on campus. However, the results are really tailored and the language is going to be very much directed at a student audience. But yes, we do see a number of faculty and staff, and in the dashboard you can actually see how many faculty and staff are engaging with those assessments. It's confidential and anonymous, so we don't know if they're there for themselves or someone else, but my guess is it's probably a pretty good split. We have interestingly had a number of inquiries about making a faculty-facing version of the platform. That's not something we have done as of yet, but that's something we're very open to when we find the right partner. Hope that answered your question. If not, please feel free to chat back in. Another question from Kevin Thomas is my guess. Is there a way to link campus calendars to the site so that students can be directed to on-campus events? So absolutely. So one thing we found is, I'm going to start over, the best way that we have found is we don't want to duplicate efforts. Meaning we don't want your events folks to have to post it on their site and then also post it on our site. So what we've done to date is if a student searches event, calendar, concert, anything like that, we'll provide a link that will link directly to that page to find out all those resources on campus. So we found that that's been very successful in connecting those students to the appropriate place. We've unfortunately found that event calendars on many campus websites can be 4 or 5 clicks in. I know that sounds easy, but we also know a lot of times people don't make it 4 and 5 clicks into any site. Thanks for the question. If you have any others, please feel free. Michael, I believe Denise answered your question about costs moving forward. If there are any others, please feel free. Another question from counseling. Hello, who reviews/vets all the resource links and articles and videos? So that is very much done on our team. So myself as a clinical psychologist, I'm touching and overviewing all of our content. So I'm making sure that these are evidence-based or evidence-informed. We also have a number of copywriters and additional folks who are very versed in behavioral health and know exactly what to look for doing that. We also allow all of our campus partners to really weigh in on content. So we're not just doing this on our own. Colorado State University, their Wellness and Counseling Center, is also looking at all new pieces of content to make sure, just from that campus perspective, that we're bringing in what is truly relevant in the higher ed space.
Nathan, just a quick question or comment on that. So for the resources that are being bought in, vetted, say for instance a campus doesn't necessarily want to show those articles, or they see an article and they're like, oh, we don't want this on our page, or it's triggering something. Are campuses able to then contact you all or flag an article or a resource that they don't feel comfortable or they don't want on their specific page?
Yes, thanks, Denise. So we have a really easy process once the platforms are launched where you can give us content feedback. That's where you submit changes to your campus resources as well as requests for new campus resources to be added. And you can also request any changes to the universal content bank, as we call it. If something is not a great fit with your campus culture, we can always hide that from any of the sites.
Great. Moving on to the next question. Go ahead.
Good morning. This is Leah. I work here at the Chancellor's office with Denise, and I have a question regarding the career content on the site. I noticed a reference to this, and I wanted to ask for some examples of some of the content or the areas of emphasis around career engagement and development, as this is an area that the CSU is really looking to more fully infuse into the student experience.
Yeah, so we have a wealth of content, and Nolan is just popping over and into that. So there's a lot of information in internships and career path, and obviously you can see that some of this overlaps with leadership and professional development. But this ranges really across the board from how do I apply for my first job? What are proper interview skills? I really like this card of what do I do with this all these business cards. When we told students, they said, I go to networking events, I get business cards from people, but then I have no idea what to do as a next step. So these are all high-level examples of what we have, and there's a lot of other strength finder assessments that can really help students identify what their strengths are personally and be able to apply those into their career and ideally professional identity. So it's answering at a very high level. Was there a little bit more you were hoping for there or further clarification?
No, that gave me a nice overview. So my assumption would be that as the campuses look to establish their systems, they would want to have colleagues who are involved in the career engagement work be a part of helping to build the content. Is that correct?
That is. So we, again, going back to those two buckets of content, we have all that universal content, and that's what we're curating so that essentially your FTE does not need to be devoted to doing so. However, we do absolutely welcome the opportunity to further any areas or emerging issues or challenges that students are experiencing to build that out. But then when it does come to all those campus resources, this is where we are leaning on your team to identify those campus resources. We do all the work to write those and make student-friendly introductions so that they can very quickly and easily access those. And those nuts and bolts will be discussed during the onboarding call that Paige will kick off once things are in motion. I think Paige has something to add as well.
Yes, so for the campus resources regarding career exploration, we know that people go to the Career Center for very different reasons, depending on where they're at in their academic journey, and we make sure to frame the Career Center's resources or related resources from other offices in ways that are really bite-sized for whatever that individual might be looking for. So again, personalizing that resource to whether they're have an interview coming up they're really nervous about, they need to polish up their resume, they're actually looking for a post-graduation job or to get into a grad program. Those are all different doors that we generate to make sure we're adding visibility to your resources.
Did that answer the question, Leah?
It did, thank you.
Great, thanks for the question. So jumping into next question from Michael, is it able to work without SSO, single sign-on? Our IT area seems to be impacted with integration requests. So we are able to do so without SSO, but we do not recommend it. So what we've found, and the reason we built SSO functionality, is that a lot of students, A, don't get that verification email, don't check it enough, they forget their password, go to the password reset. And the day that we launched single sign-on at Colorado State University, we saw a 900% increase in traffic and a sustained 400% increase. So that was our cue that unfortunately SSO, fortunately or unfortunately, SSO really removes a very significant barrier.
And just to add to that, on the resource side, totally understand that your IT team is very busy and has a lot of requests coming in. We have seen this integration take typically between 30 minutes and 3 hours on their end, so it is a manageable chunk of time, and you'll also have a huge lead time in advance, knowing that that occurs around week 6 or 7 in our process to give them a heads up that this is coming down the line. And we'll, of course, work with you on that timing and availability for your institution.
We very much understand the pressures facing university IT departments and know that we're committed to helping however we can to jump that hurdle, because we do strongly recommend it. So another question from 00793. Are there resources available for students in crisis? So that's a great question. So yes, so first off, we do have an ever-present crisis button that is always visible on this, not just homepage, but every page throughout the site. So I was actually just digging in some analytics, and this spring semester at Colorado State University, we had, I think it was 581 clicks on this button. So as the site is confidential and anonymous, we don't know what students are doing once they're there. But A, it's really nice to know that they know exactly where to turn should they experience a crisis. This button is fully customizable to each campus, so we generally recommend linking, of course, to the counseling center. If you have a tell someone or a safety team, students of concern team. And then we do recommend having a local walk-in center. If a student is maybe an international student or a high-profile athlete and wants in-person supports but doesn't feel comfortable turning to campus, we like having an option. And then with the click of a button, they can immediately start chatting with a trained crisis counselor from Suicide Prevention Lifeline through their online chat. Additionally, if I do a search for anything from help to cut, hurt, anything like that, I'll be connected to resources both on campus and other national options for help. Thank you for the question. Let's see, are we able to communicate directly with the users? So because the portal is confidential and anonymous, we do not have any sort of direct chat function or anything like that, but we do have the ability to send out emails to all of our users. So that's something we do recommend doing throughout key times of year, perhaps before fall break, to share content about going home for the first time for first-year users, or stress management or study management tips throughout midterms or before finals. We have some recommendations and can support you in helping to draft those and connect with all of your users. We can also feature content on the site at various times, which gives it very prominent real estate on the site. So if there's a specific event, an example we had from Colorado State University is they had Body Image Acceptance Week. We were able to highlight a lot of those events and drive significant traffic to those from our site. So jumping to another question, will there be available to have a local administrator who would be the local person in charge of the campus site?
Yes. Yes, so we absolutely need your help as boots on the ground to roll this out and also to make sure we're understanding your students correctly. So we usually have a key point person on every campus who kind of acts as the hub for their coalition. We will, of course, be engaging many of your colleagues to help out with this and use all their expertise and also make sure they're able to use this tool in their day-to-day student interactions as it makes sense.
Great. Daniela asked us to click into the academic section to show us what it looks like. So we can click into academics and grades. This is Succeed as a whole, but jumping into academics and grades, you can see that this is really focusing on the nuts and bolts of my learning style tips. And again, this is reflecting Ava Cole's experience. But this is everything from the Sunday Scaries is a really nice blog post about that tendency where people tend to just put everything off until Sunday night on a weekend, and then that night tends to be pretty terrible and frustrating. So it's everything from learning style to procrastination to how to run study groups and reach out to campus supports for options to help me academically. So another question, and Kevin Thomas, thank you for it. Sorry we didn't highlight this. The question is this just a standalone website or is there an application that students can download? So this was built very intentionally as a progressive web app, meaning it works just as well on phones, tablets, as well as it does laptops. So this was very important. The reason we did not go with a native app is twofold. So one, in all of our research, we found that students tend to run consistently a max of 5 apps. So email, text, Facebook, a Snapchat, Instagram, a financial institute, and the likelihood of being that 5th one has been pretty low. To date, what we've found is about 80 to 85% of our use has actually all been on laptop. And when we survey our students, we hear that students respond by saying, if I'm looking up a quick study tip, that's something I'll do walking across campus. But if I'm looking at depression content or something a little bit heavier, that's something I'm doing in the comfort of my dorm room on my laptop. And additionally, we know students tend to spend a lot of time on laptops. But a lot of our marketing campaigns, which you'll see when Paige does the marketing call, are really specifically pulling for use on mobile, because that can be a great first entry point for students to get into the platform, make that initial content, and start to explore. How do curators attend to issues of diversity and representation when building the content? That's a great question, thank you. So that is always top of mind when we are building our content. We are very mindful of that internally. So when it comes to imagery, we're making sure that we are pulling from diverse content banks and using very inclusive language in everything we write. whenever we are writing something that's a little bit more sensitive or we'd like to have a second set of eyes on, there's two processes. So one, we lean on Colorado State, their diversity office and multicultural center. We have a very good relationship with them where they're able to vet that content and make sure we're staying on top of those trends. And we also welcome the opportunity to work with any of our other campus partners to do so moving forward. So we know that diversity inclusion is always something that everyone is growing and learning. So we also welcome the opportunity, if you see areas that we can be better or make updates, working with Paige to make those recommendations, we are very apt to make those quickly. So a question from Mark. Our students are already inundated with digital tools and apps, many of which are underused. Some of those simply get lost in the digital crowd. What makes you think you at college won't be one of those? Great question, and I love the challenge. So with that, what we've really created is that large umbrella tool that students can come to you at college regardless of what it is they're looking for on campus, and this will connect them to those supports. And going back to our research in adopting that comprehensive approach, students having a one-stop shop to get to anything related to their college experience is what our users really report gets them not just coming to the site, but coming back to the site. Whether I want to work on something related to my academics or on the other end of the spectrum want to dive into something related to my mental health, students report that the value proposition is very clearly conveyed when they get in here in navigating campus resources. So we see ourselves as an umbrella that sits over all of those other digital tools on campus and increases the engagement of all of those across the board. Anything to add, Paige or Nolan?
Yeah, I would say the only other piece to add is the ability to be a responsive web application versus that native mobile app, because again, students told us, I have 5 apps on my phone that I'm going to on a consistent basis, and if this was just something that my administrators were referring to, just a blanket app to download, I would be less likely to use that. So as we can include prominent links on those existing student portals, that's really where we see the engagement and traffic consistently.
Great, Mark, please feel free to let us know. Any other questions?
Yeah, quick chime in. This is Denise from the CSU. So just to be clear for everyone, for onboarding from start to finish to get this up and running, we're talking about 3 to 4 months, correct? So if we wanted to start in the fall to start getting all this information together, then we're looking at a realistic launch for January 2020, correct?
Yes, correct. So we're hoping to get all the sites up and running over that 12 to 16-week period, and of course, depending on when that kicks off, we will have some time to train and onboard a lot of your campus partners and staff and faculty before the spring semester, and then do a full campus and network launch come spring.
We found a very effective way to do it, going with that 3 to 4 month timeline. If we're able to start the actual work in August, if we could be launching in mid-October or early November, that allows us to do a soft rollout to faculty and staff so that when the new year starts, as Paige mentioned, everyone knows exactly what it is. It's very easy to roll out. We already have those distribution channels and plans for the marketing toolkit.
Great, thank you. Well, I'll just say, if there are no more questions, we'll go ahead and end the call 4 minutes early. And I just want to say thank you to the U at College group for, this is the second of 2 webinars that we had planned, and I think the information provided was very good and comprehensive. You answered a lot of questions. We did record this, so if any of the campuses have colleagues or folks that you want to share this information with, we will go ahead and put it up on our website, and I'll be sending out the link to everyone. We'll send out the link to everyone who RSVP'd and came to one of the 2 webinars. So again, you at College team, do you guys have any last thoughts or any comments?
No, I would just like to thank you all for being here, taking the time out of your day, and for all the great questions. We're really excited to kick off this partnership, and at the end of the day, it's all of you all that are going to make this successful in tandem with us. So thank you for taking the time, and we're really looking forward to getting going.
Wonderful. So with that, the call is over. I would just ask you at College if you guys can just stay on just a moment after everyone has logged off, just for a quick touch base. Everyone else, thank you for attending, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone.